Welcome to What's in the Box episodes of horror with Donna and Eric. I'm Donna,
And I'm Eric.
and we're continuing on with our Texas AuthorCon author interviews. And with us today, we have Heather Miller. Thank you for joining us, Heather.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's great to have you on here.
Yeah. So we just have a couple of little fun icebreaker questions for you. Jason, Michael, or Freddy? Who's your favorite?
Oh, see, this is where I'm going to get in trouble and lose my horror fan cred because I don't really watch horror movies. Like,
Oh,
I love
okay.
horror stories. I read horror books constantly, but I don't watch a lot of TV and movies, period. And so when people start talking about horror movies, I'm just like, I don't know. We weren't allowed to watch any of those movies when I was a kid. My mother like outlawed all that stuff. So I didn't even see any of the kind of classic horror films until I was already an adult. So I don't have that like childhood connection to any of them. And I've maybe seen like the first movie in each of those series once. So
Wow.
I don't know. I don't have a favorite.
That's okay.
Well, yeah, that's unexpected, but fine. Yeah, right.
I know,
So,
I'm sorry.
no, that's
No.
cool. I mean, usually we get Freddy. So, so
Yeah.
we had to add Freddy because the first couple times we asked, we were just doing Michael and Jason. So,
I mean, I like the name Michael best out of those three. So,
okay.
we could
All
say
right,
that.
Well, you
we'll
know
go
what?
with
That's the
that.
first vote we've gotten for Michael, so we'll take it,
Yeah.
and then we will dive into the next one. So maybe not for movies. Maybe this is more in the book realm. But are you more vampire or werewolf?
Oh, vampire. Definitely.
Okay.
There's a romance to the vampires. I don't want any sparkly vampires, but there's vampires are kind of sexy. So I have to say vampires, definitely.
Yeah, see, I prefer if I'm going to read a vampire or even watch a vampire movie, I like the ugly, deformed, demon, gross looking vampires. I don't like the, you know, Lestat and um, type vampires.
Well, see, I don't like pretty boys. I like men, not pretty boys. So even when it's the vampires who are kind of ugly and gross, I mean, I could still go for that.
Nice. Hey,
Yeah,
there's
I
nothing
kind of
wrong
like.
with that.
Have you seen Fright Night?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, that's probably my favorite vampire movie, but I normally avoid vampires. They're kind of, I don't know, I feel like they're overdone and there's not many new or exciting things to look at. So that
Well, I
said,
can't argue that.
I am interested in the new Dracula that's coming out, the one about the boat. So that should be
Mhm.
interesting. So every once in a while somebody will I thought well, then they just do one with Nick Cage as Dracula. That's kind of
Renfield,
getting
I
it.
think it's
Yeah.
called.
And
Yeah.
really kind of get a different look at it. So sometimes those are fun, but usually I'll just avoid a vampire movie completely. So
Yeah. Now, since you didn't watch scary movies as a kid, um, do you have a favorite scary book from when you were a kid? Were you allowed to read horror or not?
I read a ton of horror. One of the things that people kind of know about me, one of my books that I have that I wrote is Tales My Grandmother Told Me. And in it, I talk about how growing up, my grandmother lived with us and she loved horror. So I sort of shared that with her. She was my introduction to the world of horror. And I did read a ton of horror. Even when I was little, I loved to read books about vampires, ghosts, witches, whatever. And then as I got, sort of those middle preteen years, I moved on to adult horror. I'm so old school. Like Edgar Allan Poe was probably the first adult horror that I read, and I would read my grandma's anthologies of like the Victorian, short ghost stories, and that's what I grew up reading, and that's really kind of the kind of stuff I like best. I do have a favorite horror. It's kind of horror book, which is Something Wicked This Way Comes by Ray
Ray
Bradbury.
mm,
Brad? Yep.
Because I just think he's such a glorious writer. His prose is so gorgeous and like creepy at the same time. And it doesn't matter how many times I read that book, I'm just like, oh my God, I wish I could write like this. So that's my favorite if I had to pick a favorite book of all time, that's probably it.
Well, what did you think of the movie? Was that a movie you were be able to watch when you were younger? I mean, it was a Disney movie, so
We did watch that when I was younger. We had it, my mom recorded it
Mhm.
off of the Disney Channel,
Well,
so I
that's how
had
we
it
used to do it, right? The
on
old school.
VHS.
Yeah.
Probably missed a few parts during the commercials. I don't know. I liked it. There was the part where they're in the mirror maze,
hmm
which really kind of freaked me out as a kid, but I liked it anyway.
Yeah, no,
My
I thought it
brother
was
and
one of
I,
the scariest movies I saw as a kid, because
yeah,
it's not just the whole idea of it when they age the boy and the woman gets old and she
right.
goes blind and the spider's in the bed. They did a really it's shocking to when you look back and think this is a Disney movie because it's not a Disney
Right.
movie now. There's no rules with Disney now, really. Back then, they were very specific on what they would and wouldn't show you, and they never would do stuff like that. And then they have this one movie that it's a classic horror movie in my mind, especially for kids. It's a good introduction. I mean, it really gets it's like pre Goosebumps, everything. It's a great thing. So, yeah, I think that's a great movie.
Yep. We watched it a lot. We wore that VHS tape out.
Yeah, for sure. That's the best way to do it. I bet you the young ones don't know this, that you would just get a 6-hour tape and you would tape as much as you could on that 6 hours and just keep running it, and then it would slowly start to stretch and everything would get kind of to the point where you couldn't watch anything anymore.
Yep.
They don't understand how good they have it. They just go find it online and just stream it, and then you don't even have to
Yep.
look really anymore for anything. So.
Yep.
Yeah, they have it good. So if somebody were to come to you and say, "Hey, I'm new to horror," what would you recommend they read first?
This is such a hard question, and people do ask this all the time, and it's a question that's almost impossible to answer because horror is such a broad category, and what some people are going to like in horror and what other people are going to like is two totally different things. I mean, I am a huge horror lover, but there are parts of horror that I don't really want to read, and there are parts that I will always read, and so I find that question incredibly hard. If it's somebody who likes the kind of stuff I like, then I say, get some of these horror anthologies of these old ghost stories and haunted house stories, because to me, there's nothing better than a bunch of ghost haunted house stories. I'll read those all day long. And I have shelves full of those anthologies, writers from the 1800s up till now. I See, I'm terrible at questions like this because I'm like, well, what do you like? What do you not like? There's so many choices. I can't pick one, which is a
Well,
horrible answer.
no,
Sorry.
it's fun.
No,
No, it's actually
no.
not the first time we've gotten this answer. So
Yeah.
let's say we're saying if somebody said to you, what's your favorite horror novel? Do you have one in particular, or do you have something that you like to go to mostly?
Well, like I said, Something Wicked This Way Comes is probably my favorite book of all time. I don't know. I
And
read
you know what? That
so
would be a good book to hand to somebody and say, hey, this will get you kind of the vibe, get you on the road, the path, and
yeah.
then
I read so many books because I'm a book reviewer as well as an author. And so it's pretty common for me to read about 150 books every year. And so sometimes I'm like, I could love a book today. And if you asked me about it next month, I wouldn't be able to remember what the book was. I'd have to go back through my list of what I've read and be like, oh yeah, I like this one. But just bringing it up in my brain, there's too many books in there. I can't do that.
yeah, I can get that.
So while we're, what are you currently reading? What do you have? And
That's a good question. I'm not okay. So I'm also an editor. So the book I'm reading right now is the book I'm editing, which is the book that's going to come out at some point this year. I don't know exactly. And I'm reading To Spin a Black Yarn by Josh Malerman. I have a
Okay.
copy of that I'm reading for review. And Josh Malerman is just, amazing. Also an author who has a really great sort of unique kind of prose. So that's kind of my two things that I'm back and forth with right now, is this book that I'm editing and the Josh Malerman book.
So do you get a lot of time to read for pure pleasure? Because, if you're doing reviews, and I know reading for reviews is pleasurable, but do you just say, I'm not doing I haven't been contacted to asked to do a review on this book, but I really want to just pick it up and read it. I'm not editing it. It's a book. I just saw it and it looked interesting and I want to read it.
I definitely do that. But I have to sort of fit it in around everything else. So the books that I'm just reading simply because I want to get read much more slowly than the books I'm reading for review. Because I have to, like, if I'm reading a book for review, I try to read 100 pages a day. But these other books, I'm like, if I can fit in 15, 20 pages now and then, that's just kind of the way my world works right now.
Yeah, because with reviews, you're trying to hit a deadline probably because like the release date or whatever.
Yep.
Yeah, that's cool.
Now, on the books you review, do you focus primarily horror or do you do other things?
Oh yeah,
it's
horror,
all horror.
Totally horror. Yep.
So you're not gonna do a review of some dinosaur erotica?
No, I get plenty of ads for those on my Kindle, but no. There's some things I will not touch.
They're ridiculous.
They're very popular, so I don't know. There's something going on there. I don't know. I never would have thought that would have been a subgenre that there were people, but I guess I don't know why I think that there's something for everybody or everybody for something, right? So, oh, go ahead, Donna.
No, you go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to swing into the talking about genres. Is that all you focus on? Are you just primarily a horror writer? Do you have other things that you want to look at or stuff that you're working on?
I think I can say I'm firmly in horror. There are different, sort of subgenres of horror that I like and that I do. I kind of am branching out a little bit this year. I'm writing for 2 different anthologies that are like monster creature feature kind of things, which is not my normal area, but I'm having fun kind of pushing myself to do that. So that's interesting. I'm an old-fashioned ghost story girl mostly, but I like some folk horror. I like I haven't written a vampire story yet, but there may be one in me somewhere. I like psychological horror a lot. I try to kind of put that into everything that I write, build up the tension. That's kind of my thing. But yeah, I'm definitely horror all the way. Everything else is kind of boring to me, honestly.
Yeah, the way I always think of it is that everything is horror. So it doesn't matter what I'm writing. Horror is going to be the underlining theme, because I just finished a Western and I've done creature stuff. And, even if I wrote a romance thing, it would still primarily be a horror novel, just would have that element added to it. So I look for the horror in everything.
I demand an Eric Butler romance horror.
All right, I'll put it on the list. I'm sure it'll be
dinosaurs
terrible.
in there.
Yeah, I know, right? Can it be dinosaur related? Because that'll make it a lot easier. So
yeah.
So I totally get that. And you do ghost stories really, really well. I read Vice, and I think that story is, just the rhythm of it's perfect. And it's a really good telling of a ghost story within a story. You know what I mean? So you just did a really good job, I thought, of that. And it flows really well. And it has that creep, that element of creepiness that's just perfect in those kind of stories. So
thank you. That is one of the stories based on a story my grandmother used to tell us. So
that's cool. I was going to ask you, because as I was reading the foreword and you were talking about your grandmother, and you said at the very end that a couple of the stories I think were originals and something was based off something your kids did, and then most of them were based off your grandmother. So I thought that would be fun too, to go through the whole thing. I haven't finished the collection, but I did read that first story, and I was blown away. I thought it was really fun. So
thank you. Yep, that was something that happened, that she said happened to her. Whether or not it really did, or she was just trying to scare us, who knows?
Right. Yeah, and let's see. So, your grandmother grew up in an age where people felt, it seemed like they were more in tune to that kind of stuff, that they might see that and immediately recognize it for what it is, where nowadays we would be more like, well, that scientifically isn't possible, so we're going to completely ignore it and they seem to be a little more open to the creepy crawlies and the evil spirits and all that kind of stuff. So
Yep.
that's why they have such good stories, and that's why they were
Mhm.
always able to scare us so well.
Yeah.
So
Now, in your writing, do you have any music playing in the background?
Sometimes. Usually I just like silence or just like some white noise. I do have a lot of children, so silence is rare.
mhm.
I have 5 kids, 3 who still live at home, 2 who are grown, so it's a little quieter these days. But I really just like to go, in my room, shut the door, turn the fan on, and just sort of get in the zone. Occasionally I'll have music, but it has to be like instrumental music because if it has words, then it just distracts me.
Yeah, that
Yeah, for
seems to be
sure.
the consensus that we've heard um, with lyrics and stuff.
Yeah, I like instrumental. I need some kind of noise. A lot of times I just have to have headset on just to drown out the house. I got 2 huskies and a kid and a wife that likes TV, and something's always playing. So
Now, do you have a particular routine when you're going to write? Like, do you always write in your room? Um, do you have a particular time of day that you like to write?
I no. You can see right behind me this couch by this window. I sit there to write. Probably 80% of my writing happens right there. But sometimes I write in bed. And when the weather's nice, I like to go sit out on the back deck and write out there. I have written in various places over the last few years. I've taken my laptop with me on vacation and just written, at other people's houses or in the hotel room or, whatever. Um, and the time of day that I write tends to depend on what I'm writing because like my first book, Knock Knock, almost the entire story took place in the middle of the night. It was dark and, kind of that just sort of isolated, lonely middle of the night feeling. And I wrote that entire book in the mornings between like 4 and 6 a.m. I would get up before the kids, sit in the living room in the dark and write. But then I have a story that is in an anthology that just came out. The anthology is called The Depths Unleashed. And this story is set in Oklahoma in the summer outside. So I wrote almost all of it sitting outside on my back deck, with the sun shining. It just, if I can get in a sort of atmosphere myself that matches the atmosphere I'm writing about, I like to do that. But you can't always do that.
Yeah.
So a lot of my writing just happens right back there on the couch.
That's cool. I like that you try to match your environment to your story. I think it's a good way to like immerse yourself in the story,
well, with all the editing and 5 kids, I would guess you grab it as often or whenever you can is when you write. It's the way I would probably see it. So
My days right now are generally get up because we homeschool as well. So I mean the kids are here all day. So is get up, do a little housework, get the kids started on their school, and then I spend my mornings doing my editing job because you got to pay the bills. And then after lunch, I go out and walk 5 miles every day. And then I come home and write for the rest of the afternoon until time to make dinner. And then we'll often also write after the kids are in bed. That's kind of what my routine is at this point.
Well, it's a pretty busy schedule.
Yeah,
I
for
like to
sure.
stay busy. I don't like to be bored.
Yeah. Yeah, it
Yeah,
helps
as
to.
I imagine, it's hard to be bored with 5 kids running around and you
It
having
is.
and stuff. So yeah, because
I
I'm
have one and it's hard to be bored with
right. I know I
with
have
him.
one too. Um, so you said you were working on some anthologies. Is there anything else you're working on? Do you think you might have something at the event? What were you looking to bring to the events that people know what to look for?
Okay, here's the deal with the event. I'm going to be mostly at the Last Waltz publishing table because that
Mhm.
is the publisher that I use mostly. They will have copies of my book, Tales My Grandmother Told Me. I'll be there. I'll sign them if we want. Um, I'm also going to be right next to the Last Waltz table. Jay Mazer is going to have her table, and she's like, "You can use part of my table to put your books on if you want." So I'm going to have some copies of my book Knock Knock there as well, kind of slid over on Jay's table.
Okay.
But the big thing for me at Texas AuthorCon is that we're going to be having early copies of my book that comes out later this year. It is called What the Dead Leave Behind. It is 4 sort of novelettes that all are stories of people haunted in different ways by the things people in their lives have left behind when they died. So they're, I don't know that I want to say they're all ghost stories. They're all haunting stories, and some of them are scary, and some of them are just kind of sad, and one of them is actually kind of sweet. So you get the whole range there. But that book technically comes out on September 14th, but we're gonna go ahead and have some early copies available exclusively at Texas AuthorCon for the people
That's
who
awesome.
are there. So that's like the big thing. That will also be at the Last Waltz table.
Very
And
cool.
my other big project this year is that I have actually started my own small press, which focuses exclusively on anthologies. And our first anthology is coming out in October on Friday the 13th. It's called House of Haunts. It is 12, no, it was 12. Sorry, we changed it. 24 rooms, 24 ghosts, 24 stories. So we have 24 authors who have each written a story that takes place in a specific room of this big house that we're all in together. And it's really exciting. We've got some really our table of contents is just going to be
Yeah, it's going to be really cool because I saw the post about it.
It kind of took off. I was just like, here's my idea, here's what I want to do, and it just exploded, and it's amazing, and all the authors are really working together. Like we have blueprints of what this house looks like, and everybody's like, whose room am I next to? And oh, maybe my dog's going to be barking at what's happening out in your garage, whatever. So everybody's kind of working together to make the stories fit together. It's just awesome. So I won't have that book yet at Texas AuthorCon, but I am going to have like little postcard kind of things with the cover of the book and the information about it when it comes out that I can give to people so they can like stick it on their fridge and remember, hey, in October, get this book.
Yeah, and if I don't know
Please get this
everybody,
book.
I don't know everybody that's in it, but some of the names I've seen mentioned, this is going to be an amazing project. So it's really cool. Very cool.
Yeah, that sounds awesome.
I sure hope so.
Now,
it's kind of an ambitious thing for my first project, but we're sure going to try.
I'm sure it'll work out. It sounds like it's working out great. Now, how did you get the blueprints drawn up? Did you just how did that even work out?
I drew them.
You drew them?
Oh. I said, give me some graph paper. When I was a kid, I used to love to draw blueprints for houses and like on giant sheets of newsprint. And I would like cut out pictures of furniture out of magazines and like arrange them in the rooms in these houses that I designed. So for a while I wanted to be an interior designer. So that was kind of that. But yeah, I make quilts and I design my own quilt patterns. So that kind of played into it too, because I was like, I have all this graph paper from designing quilts. So I just took some and kind of got in my mind what I wanted this house to look like and what all rooms it needed to have. And I just drew it up, said, here's all the floors, everybody, pick your room and let's do this.
Very cool.
Wow, that's amazing. I'm definitely going to have to grab that book.
Yeah, you're going to, I don't remember. I saw just some of the names and there's some big names, so it'll be fun. Good writers. That's the most important thing is that it looks like you've gathered, some really good writers. So the story should be really fun.
I did. It was an invitation only anthology. I knew it would have to be just because of the way it was going to work, where they had to pick a specific room and it couldn't just be, hey, everybody write a room and send me stories. And, it didn't work like that. It had to be invitation only. And luckily I've been kind of in this community for a while and I know authors that I know they're good. I know they write well. So I just picked the ones that I liked, and I tried to get a variety of writing styles, and some who are sort of more extreme, and some who aren't, and you know, so that it's not just kind of the same sort of story over and over throughout the anthology. It's gonna be really cool.
Yeah, it
Nice.
sounds great.
What's the title of it?
House of Haunts.
House of Haunts. Okay. I'll have to pick up one of your little advertisements for it so I can remember. I'll do that.
Absolutely.
So other than Texas AuthorCon, where can people find your books?
Well, I mean, Amazon. You can also find, trying to remember. I know you can get Knock Knock at Barnes and Noble online. I think you can get Tales My Grandmother Told Me as well. And there are a few stores, brick and mortar stores that carry them, but it's kind of hit and miss with that, you know, because that's the way the indie scene works. I do occasionally sell signed copies that you can buy direct from me, but that's probably not going to happen again until after Texas AuthorCon, because all the copies that I have on hand are going to be saved for that. But just, you know, Amazon, which we all love to hate to love, you know.
Yep.
Yeah, we'll have the links in the whatever.
In the
below.
description. Yeah,
Yeah, the
we'll have the
description.
link to your Amazon page so people can
And all your social media and all that stuff, so people can find you and keep up with it and see how the progress is going on the new stories and stuff.
My social media is easy because whether you're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, I have the same handle. It's H Miller Horror on all social media sites, so it's easy.
Makes it easy.
Yeah, easy to remember.
Nice. All right. Well, it was great having you on. Just a quick little, not quick, but you know, just a nice introduction so people can see who's going to be there and make a list of who they want to stop, you know, what tables they want to stop at, and maybe pick up some new authors to read. So again, thank you, Heather, for joining us. All right,
Thank
and
you
we
for
will
having me.
we'll see you all in the next episode.